This is the Palin Update on Mama Grizzly Radio. I'm Kevin Scholla in the new Full Battle Rattle studios.
I want to encourage these women, oh my goodness, give this life a chance. You will be blown away, overwhelmed. Your life will so change for the better.
Perhaps Sarah Palin put it best this past week, saying, "Sad it took this long, but it has happened." Never had a sitting president or vice president attended the March for Life in Washington, D.C., until now, that is. Mike Pence spoke to the huge crowd of pro-lifers this past Friday, giving the march more press coverage and showing this pro-life generation that the Trump administration will fight for the unborn. Today, we talk with a remarkable woman who met with Pence right before the vice president's big speech. She is a former Planned Parenthood director, but now she's a pro-life advocate. We can't wait to talk to Abby Johnson coming up. Plus, we'll have the latest national and Alaska headlines and Sarah Palin news. We'll visit the Crow's Nest with Tanya Crow in California. Also from the Golden State, Kelly Carlson is on target. The Millennial Forecast with Sarah Hagmeyer in New Jersey. And a brand new installment of Liberty and Legacy with Tamara Colbert in Texas. Welcome to the Palin Update on Mama Grizzly Radio. The Palin Update is sponsored by Full Battle Rattle. Full Battle Rattle, helping veterans suffering from combat-related disabilities through the healing power of music. Learn more at facebook.com/Full Battle Rattle ABQ. Excuse my voice these last few weeks. A lot to celebrate, a lot of yelling going on from the inauguration to the March for Life to coaching kindergartners in basketball. So please bear with us. But history in Washington for the second straight Friday. Vice President Mike Pence became the first Veep in the 44 years since Roe v. Wade to attend the March for Life in Washington, D.C. The March for Life has taken place every year since the Roe v. Wade ruling in 1973. The march has grown annually and is sure to continue to do so now because the White House had the courage to get on board. Today, we welcome pro-life champion Abby Johnson to the show. She's a former Planned Parenthood director who saw the light, and now she fights for life each and every day. She has an amazing personal story, too, and she met with Vice President Pence this past week prior to the big march. And right now, we do welcome Abby Johnson to the Palin Update on Mama Grizzly Radio. Abby, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me.
The annual March for Life march taking place this past Friday in Washington, D.C., and historic this time around because Mike Pence, one of the speakers, and it's the first time a sitting president or vice president has been there. I want to get into that. That's a big deal. But first, I want to talk about you and your role in all of this. It's such an exciting time here in the pro-life movement. And here we are really with the administration now backing you. How big was it to have Vice President Pence there?
Oh, it was just really amazing. And you know, the March for Life is always just, you know, so joyful and such a wonderful time. But this year, it was different because there was really just this feeling of optimism and hope that we have not had in the past 8 years. And to have the vice president there, in fact, I was at the White House the night before the march and with Mike Pence, and it was just great. He just stood there and he said, "Well," he said, "it's the night before the March for Life. Welcome to the White House." And I thought, oh my gosh, you know, we are really going to see some positive change in this country regarding the unborn, regarding their mothers. And there was just really just this hopefulness in the air that we just haven't felt, you know, in the past 8 years. So it was really beautiful. It was a beautiful time.
Well, and what a shrewd move, really, by President Trump, you know, to give you this exposure, not only sending the vice president there, but mentioning your march in the ABC interview that he did shortly after taking office. We all know about your march, thus in the pro-life community, been watching you for years and going out there in all sorts of weather and turning out in numbers all the time. But the media has largely ignored it, where they're covering other things and other marches that they think are important. So big move there from the White House to get you that coverage. And really, Abby, I mean, you're one of the stars there. Talk about a time for optimism. Some of the words that you said at the march, Sky's the limit. I believe that in the next 4 years, we will see the end of Roe v. Wade stand in front of you. Today, a woman who spent 8 years of her life working and running a Planned Parenthood facility. Lots to cover there. First, Roe v. Wade. You really believe that there's a chance to overturn it?
I really do. President Trump has made promises to the pro-life movement that he will appoint pro-life justices. And I believe that he will keep that promise. And so it's an exciting time. I mean, if we can get pro-life justices on the Supreme Court, not only is it important for Roe v. Wade, but it's also important for our state legislative efforts. Because, you know, as you know, many times when we pass pro-life legislation at the state level, it ends up going to the Supreme Court and it gets struck down, like we saw in the Texas law, Holman's Health v. Hellerstedt. So, you know, this is going to make it's going to make a difference, not just on the federal level, but also for our state groups that are working so hard.
You also said at the march, because of the power of conversion, because of the power of Christ, I stand in front of you, a woman who has been redeemed from her past. It's amazing. You have your own personal experience with abortion. You worked for a Planned Parenthood facility, and here you are now a champion for life. I mean, listen, people can listen to me. They can listen to anyone. It's great, anyone that's pro-life. But someone like you, I mean, to have, you know, that backing of your life experiences, people really should take note.
Well, and you know what? It's not just me. It was such a beautiful time. It really is a beautiful time in the pro-life movement because we are seeing our ministry, and then there were none, has helped in the past 4 years 330 abortion clinic workers leave the industry and get into life-affirming work and come to Christ. And we've also helped 7 full-time abortion doctors leave the industry, and they're now working in life-affirming medical practices. So it's just really been incredible, and I think that gives the pro-life movement a lot of hope to know that conversion is possible for anyone. No one is a lost cause, and we're seeing it happen right in front of us.
You know, we heard from a lot of groups, including a lot of conservative groups during the campaign, you know, this whole narrative of, well, Donald Trump, he's not pro-life enough, or Donald Trump, he's not really pro-life. He's saying this to be elected. I tell you what, you know, as Sarah Palin put it, she thought he should have been lauded and congratulated for seeing the light on this. And now, early on in his administration and in his presidency, he is backing it up with the moves that he's made so far, whether it be international abortions and moving forward and just showing the respect to the march. So I think that if they didn't believe now, people should start to believe in the pro-life stance of this president.
Well, and listen, you know, I think that some of the greatest spokespeople for the pro-life movement are people who are converts, people who have been on the other side, people who have seen what's really taking place inside the abortion industry, and people who can admit that they were wrong. And you know, I think every pro-lifer has every reason to trust Vice President Pence on his pro-life convictions. He has shown that over and over again as governor. And if he's telling us that they are 100% pro-life administration, then I think that we should absolutely take him at his word.
And when you look at the people who marched, Abby, not just this year, but all the time, I mean, those that are there all the time or those that have gone once or twice, you know, obviously lots of Christians, lots of Catholics, but there's a lot of people there, atheists, Jews, men, women, gay, black, whatever. You saw so many people standing up for life, and I would think the bigger the numbers and the bigger the movement, then that whole Roe v. Wade overturn that you talk about and this whole pro-life generation could really come to fruition.
Absolutely. You know, the pro-life movement is an inclusive movement. We are, you know, we're willing to accept anybody who wants to stand up for the rights of the unborn, for the rights of the innocent. And it's really encouraging to see so many secular perspectives coming into the pro-life movement. It's exciting to see, you know, groups who are traditionally known as being pro-choice, like the LGBT community, you know, coming to the march, speaking out in defense of life. And I think that just, you know, but I think it all goes back to the love of Christ, that this is primarily a Christian movement, and we want to love people into this movement no matter where they are, you know, what's happened in their past, or, you know, the type of lifestyle they're living now. We have to show everyone the love of Christ. To be perfectly honest, that's how conversion takes place. So it's a good place to be on the side of life.
You know, we love to talk to all pro-lifers on this program, but, you know, those who really do have that background or, you know, life situations that they could speak about, you know, really grab people's ears. I mean, Alveda King has been here multiple times. Governor Palin, of course, with the decisions she and her daughter have made as far as pregnancies. Now, Abby, a very personal situation for you when it comes to abortion and then working at Planned Parenthood. Can you talk about your situations with abortion and then also what changed your mind to work for Planned Parenthood specifically?
Sure. I have had 2 abortions in my life. I began working at Planned Parenthood in college, rose up the ranks, became a clinic director, was very involved at the national level, and also very involved with the National Abortion Federation. Ended up leaving in 2009 after several things happened, but one was that we were instructed to double our abortion quota, the amount of abortions that we had to perform in our centers every month. And, you know, here we were, an organization going out saying, oh, no, well, we want to reduce the number of abortions. And, you know, it's all about prevention. So if that's the case, if that's true, then number one, why do we have an abortion quota in the first place? And number two, if we have one, why are we trying to double it? We should be trying to reduce that number. So that was troubling for me. But ultimately, I ended up leaving in October of 2009 after witnessing a live ultrasound-guided abortion procedure where I saw a 13-week-old baby fight and struggle for his life during that abortion and ultimately lose his life. And I knew then, because of what I had seen, that there was humanity there, that there was life in the womb. And if those 2 things were true, then I had been perpetuating violence against an innocent human being. And I had been doing it for 8 years. And so I knew I had to leave. And when I left, I began speaking out and have been talking about the corruption inside the abortion industry and how abortion affects not just women, not just the unborn, but our families and fathers, and how it affects our economy and how it affects our society as a whole.
Well, we thank you so much, Abby, for everything you're doing. And, you know, you are proof. Karen Handel, the former gubernatorial candidate endorsed by Governor Palin, who was here, both of you prove that you can stand up to Planned Parenthood, expose Planned Parenthood, and tell people, you know, what's really going on there. But unbelievable this past week, the March for Life. And have you talked to any pro-lifers that you dealt with before that really had serious doubts on President Trump? And are they thinking differently now?
Yeah, I think so. I think that, you know, people who were skeptical, people who just really didn't know what to think about him, I think that they are coming around. I mean, especially with the Mexico City policy and, you know, him signing that in his first week of office. I think that gave a lot of hope to those who had been skeptical. And I think just his participation. I mean, Vice President Pence told us that night in his office before the March for Life, he said, you know, when President Trump found out that there was a March for Life going on, he said, we have to be there. We have to be represented at this March for Life. We have to show these people that we are on their side, that this is an administration that they can trust. And so it's very exciting. There's so much optimism, so much hope. And it's just a really good feeling that the big changes are coming.
Well, it's amazing it took this long, but it is good news on many horizons. You know, I get this question a lot, and I'm going to ask you, how do you do all this? You must have a great support system with your husband and kids because, you know, I know just from coaching and announcing and anchoring and doing this show and just trying to, you know, go day to day, it's not easy. That support system comes in big. I bet you that's the case with your husband and kids.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm actually pregnant with twins right now, babies 6 and 7 for our family. I'm so blessed to have a husband that supports me and supports this ministry and really sees it as a ministry of our family. And he actually is a stay-at-home dad. He was a special ed teacher for many years and now stays at home with our children. And, you know, but that's what being pro-life is about. You know, It's about family. Well, and so we really are blessed to support each other in that way.
Well, God bless him as well. Thank him. And, hey, those babies show up. We're going to have a National League baseball team there with 9 of you, right?
That's absolutely right.
What do you do?
I'm doing May.
Perfect. Batter up. You'll be 1 month into the season, ready to go. Abby Johnson, we appreciate you so much. Thank you. And we're going to keep tabs on this. And let's talk again, okay? You were great.
Absolutely. Anytime.
All right. God bless.
All right. Bye-bye.
For more, please visit abbyjohnson.org and abortionworker.com. And worth noting, folks, no cars set on fire during the March for Life, no riots, nothing of that nature, no vulgar signs, just a lot of love, a lot of happiness, and a lot of hope. Now it's time for Sarah Palin news, headlines, and more about Governor Palin. Sarah Palin applauds the pro-life marchers and exposes the hypocrisy of the pink hat crowd. Palin calls out the cowards that go after the children of politicians. As Palin called for years ago, it is now time to drill, baby, drill. Liberals call for peace, yet continue violence and rioting. Palin quotes Denzel Washington regarding the media. Palin, a former waitress, weighs in on a story about a really huge tip. Disgusting Hollyweird makes more remarks about a Trump. Palin doesn't let him slide. And after changing the face of politics, Sarah Pack transitions into something new and exciting. To read about all of these stories, please visit the Mama Grizzly Radio Facebook page. To see any of the governor's posts in their entirety, visit Sarah Palin's Facebook page, follow her on Twitter at Sarah Palin USA, and don't miss the new sarahpalin.com.
Now let's head to the crow's nest. Here's Tanya Crow.
Thanks, Kevin. This has been a whirlwind of a week. There's an unknown factor that I'm really excited about. I enjoy the mystery of life. I didn't know what sex my daughter was going to be for that reason. I kind of felt like there's not that many mysteries left in life, and that was one that I wanted to have. And it sort of feels like these next 4 years is a bit like that, like we're rebirthing our country. And we're all in the same boat. It still blows my mind how human beings can experience the same circumstance and have such different takes on it. I've always been fascinated by that. That is the human condition. For instance, there's 4 people sitting at a dinner, and there's one waiter, and that waiter comes to the table and takes everyone's order. We're all experiencing the same exact person, but one person could think that he's arrogant, and did you see how he spoke to us? Another person could actually find him energetic, maybe funny, and then another person could not even have noticed that waiter. They have no opinion whatsoever. And our interpretation of that person has everything to do with us and with the lens that we look through. We all have our own fingerprint physically, right? There's not one fingerprint that is identical to another. And I just hope for all of us to celebrate the differences, whether it's the differences between men and women, whether it's the differences between right and left, whether it's the differences between someone living in a rural area and someone living in a city. And that opportunity is coming because the differences are being magnified so that we can learn true tolerance. This is Tanya Crow with Mama Grizzly Radio.
Tanya Crow on Mama Grizzly Radio. More from the Crow's Nest next week. Now, on target with Kelly Carlson.
Thanks, Kevin. So I'm sitting here with our good friend Ed Calderon. He was on a couple weeks ago, and Ed worked for the Mexican government for over a decade. He worked counter narcotics, anti-organized crime, and also high-level executive protection in Mexico. I really wanted him to come back on to tell us what his perspective was like during Fast and Furious. So, Ed, how did you learn about Fast and Furious in a professional way? Like when you were at work, how did you learn about Fast and Furious?
So we were seeing a lot of violence along the border, specifically between a few rival cartels. And we started noticing very high level firearms being used as far as 50 caliber sniper rifles and FN 57s, which are very exotic down there. So we started seeing a very heavily armed, sophisticated type cartel working down there, and we know where those guns were coming from.
So wait, nobody called you from the United States saying, hey, by the way, we're sending thousands of weapons your way, just so you know.
No, not at all. I mean, it was after the Bush administration. We used to get a lot of information from the U.S. side of the of things during the Bush administration. Everything kind of went quiet or silent during the start of the Obama administration, and we were very much kept in the dark by specifically this operation where they were putting all these guns into Mexico.
So you see all these firearms coming into your country. You don't know from where, you don't know why, but do you eventually learn what is taking place at all?
So we never got any sort of official information from any government sources in the U.S. about it. We learned about it very much like the American public learned about it by watching TV. We started seeing the whole Fast and the Furious scandal kind of progress on television and news sources in the U.S., and that's how we learned about it. We started kind of figuring out why specific guns were the ones that were more commonly utilized by a specific cartel in Mexico, and why all of a sudden they were heavily armed. And
So I'm going to ask you more about that in 1 second. Were you affected by Fast and Furious, personally, or friends, or?
a lot of the guns that ended up being flagged as Fast and the Furious guns were used in murders, and some of my friends, colleagues, and coworkers were targeted. In one case, one of my fellow agents got shot with his wife and a young kid behind the car. I mean, it affected a lot of people, but me directly. A lot of my friends got shot with some of those guns.
That would make me extremely, extremely angry if another country did that. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
I could go on about that. So let me ask you this. From your perspective, down in Mexico, you worked for the government at a very, very high level. What did Fast and Furious end up actually looking like to you? I know what we all know what it was supposed to be. But from the Mexican perspective, what did it end up actually looking like?
So we saw only one cartel being benefited by it, the Sinaloa cartel. Specifically, they were getting the best weapons, the most weapons, and a consistent flow of ammunition. A lot of people focus on the guns, but they don't know that a lot of people that you have to feed those guns. So they were getting ammunition. They started up their shooting ranges and underground shooting ranges. It was just crazy. To me, it looked like a very organized effort to benefit a single cartel down there.
Did one single cartel benefit?
Sinaloa, during the Obama administration, Sinaloa cartel became the dominant cartel in Mexico. Definitely.
So one could say it looked like it was on purpose. I can't say that for a fact. Maybe you can't either, but it professionally looked like it.
So when we go through all the names of Sinaloa cartel members and their blood ties into the U.S., it's very cross borders. Now we don't know if that has something. I don't know if that has something to do with why they focused on benefiting just the Sinaloa cartel. But you see a lot of those Latin names and a lot of those Latin Mexican families that have blood ties and connections to Sinaloa in the U.S. Politically active in a particular.
You see the names you recognize pop up in our government positions.
I see them in politically active Chicano and Mexican based voting structures up here as far as political movements.
Wow.
And to us, it was very clear who they were benefiting. It's never been too clear what the end goal was.
Well, Ed, I hope that you can do a more in-depth interview with Kevin on this, because I know you have so much more and your perspective is so rare, and to get the opportunity to talk to you about it. And thank you for sharing. I'm sorry we're wrapping up. Kevin, I hope that you will continue this with Ed. And this is Kelly Carlson for Mama Grizzly Radio.
Tune in for more On Target next week. It's time for the Millennial Forecast. Here's Sarah Hagmeyer.
Thanks so much, Kevin. You're literally not going to believe this story. But I just gotta say, sometimes it's amazing how you meet the most fascinating people in the most random places. I have met so many interesting people, and we have had striking conversations about politics. One time at Starbucks, I met a man that was actually put out of business by Donald Trump in Atlantic City. That was definitely a very uncomfortable conversation. But I have also met a black woman who was not only a badass Army veteran, but she was a Democrat voting for Donald Trump, and she loved Donald Trump. However, the other day I was on the airplane, and I was sitting next to a Bernie Sanders worshiper. And of course, luckily, our political conversation struck up only an hour before we landed. But we didn't initially start talking about politics. It was after she was telling me about my horoscope. But then after she told me my horoscope, she proceeded to accuse the three wise men for not giving astrologists any credit because she claimed astrology was more feminine and astronomy was more masculine, and that's why astrologists didn't get any credit. So I knew I was in for a real treat after she accused the three wise men of basically being sexist, misogynist jerks. But then she did bring up politics, and she begged for me not to say I didn't vote or, I didn't support Trump. But I was not going to lie, I'm a really proud supporter. This conversation was one of the most difficult I have had with anyone. Whenever I thought, though, she was about to get triggered by what I said, I just reminded her of what the DNC did to poor Bernie Sanders. He didn't give a chance. WikiLeaks revealed he didn't get a chance. And like a switch, her Trump-filled anger went to sorrow and disappointment. And I knew at that point I was just going to be a good listener. Because just like her vegan, gluten-free lifestyle that she lives, her opinions were also not changing either. But what I loved most, though, was that she hated Hillary Clinton, and that's where we got along. So it wasn't a bad flight after all. I don't think, though, that any millennial could have had a mature, smooth-toned conversation like we did while on that flight. So for future conversations, we can only forecast major trigger storms and Trump hate exploding thunder. For Mama Grizzly Radio, I'm Sarah Hagmeyer, and that was your Millennial Forecast.
And next week, we'll have a new edition of the Millennial Forecast right here on the Palin Update. Now, the Palin Update with Kevin Scholla presents Liberty and Legacy. Here's Tamara Colbert.
President Trump's first week in office has been a flurry of activity. I haven't had so much fun watching White House press briefings or presidential signings of executive orders since at least 2008. And I've had a heck of a great time listening and watching the mainstream media pundits freaking out over Donald Trump erasing almost the entire legacy of Barack Obama with the stroke of his pen. Just goes to show you, anybody who uses their executive pen from the executive branch, those orders can be undone by the next president with the stroke of a pen, and it's been a beautiful thing to watch. But what's really happened this week is that Trump has been massive in his action. Can I say this again? Action. It's a verb. It's doing something. Forward motion. What has he done? He's put a freeze on new and pending regulations coming out of the EPA. He got America out of the Trans-Pacific Partnership. He's authorized construction of the Keystone Pipeline. He's reinstated the Mexico City policy so the U.S. will not fund international health providers who provide abortion. He has called for the construction of the wall on the Mexican border. He has enacted his extreme vetting program. Wow! And he has indefinitely suspended the Syrian refugee program while putting a hiring freeze on civilian government employees and dealing with Obamacare by waiving officially the fiscal burdens and fees to individuals and families and health providers. Wow. And, I almost forgot, he's defunded sanctuary cities, meaning any mayor who continues to defy and refuses to comply with the rule of law related to illegals will lose their federal grant money. Whew. Are you guys keeping up with this? Holy cow. What I love more importantly is that the Democrats have been totally flummoxed with all this action. They don't even know what to do. Even many Republicans are shocked at the speed that President Trump is moving right now. But why? For 18 months on the campaign trail, Trump detailed this. He talked about it every day, about not only what he would do, but how quickly he would do it. So now you've got Democrats trying to be stinkers, digging in their heels on approving Trump's cabinet picks just to be obstinate. You've got Republicans totally caught off guard because they have nothing ready to go for replacing Obamacare. And it's not that there aren't ideas out there. It's just straight up the Republicans, are left scratching their heads. And you know what? I have an idea. Let's start by fully repealing Obamacare. Period. Exclamation point. Then we can start looking at ideas piece by piece, whether it's fixing frivolous lawsuits, whether it's providing the right policies for young people, whether it is enabling insurance companies to sell insurance across state lines to create competition. We have people that have brilliant ideas. Senator Rand Paul, Senator Ted Cruz, Ben Carson. They've got great ideas. So it's time to find solutions one by one, issue by issue, and implement them all. This way the American people can follow right along and understand every single component for making America's healthcare great again. This shouldn't have come from a surprise to anybody, because Trump said he was going to bring action to the do-nothing Congress. And I just think it's hysterical, right? Because we knew this is what we wanted. Somebody who would be a man of action, not talk. Because since 2010, there's been a lot of talk, a lot of yakking from people on Capitol Hill. Those historic elections, those new authorities, new people, the new Republican leadership leading the House, leading the Senate, and not one thing has changed. But what has changed is that Trump has single-handedly changed the face of American politics and removed the mystique that only those who've been a lifetime in public service are qualified to be president or qualified to be a senator. Nope, those days are over. Actually, a lifetime in politics, what is that? That just doesn't show me anything, because you haven't produced a dang thing. You and I'd be fired after weeks. It may not even take weeks for us to be fired if we were hired to do a job and didn't do anything. And I love it because Trump is shining a spotlight on this. The Congress has known since November 8th who won the presidency. They have known what Trump has wanted to accomplish. So the morning after his victory, Trump had started interviewing candidates for cabinet positions and otherwise, doing it himself, not leaving it to others to do. Attention, mainstream media, this is what real business leaders do. They hire, they fire, and they don't leave it to flunkies and nut jobs to put resumes out there and say, put this guy in, put that guy in, and a president who is a robot will do it. The Congress should have been working tirelessly from November 9th until they reconvened in January on solutions to put in front of Trump. Repealing Obamacare, fixing America's tax structure, repealing regulations, etc. Instead, Congress was taking a nice 3-week holiday and came back only to be, quote, surprised that President Trump had spent his holiday visualizing and planning exactly what he was going to do in his first week, his second week, his third week, his first 100 days, and his first 200 days. Senate Majority Leader McConnell, your days are numbered if you are not getting on the Trump train. Speaker Ryan, same thing. You've got less than 2 years before your reelection, and you better get to work, or the next race isn't going to be as close as the last one. But what I really love is the fact that the status quo of American politics was officially obliterated on November 8, 2016. Quite frankly, a day that is going to live in infamy in the minds of elite politicians, not just in America, but all over the world. Great Britain, oh my goodness, they are looking forward to being sovereign again. I am excited as an American for really focusing on America, being sovereign again, taking care of American workers, creating American jobs, eliminating regulations, letting businesses do what they do best, which is hiring Americans. Let's protect our borders. Let's keep our people safe. Let's protect Christians. Let's protect life. That's a whole other story. I'm so proud of Vice President Pence for speaking, and Kellyanne Conway, and President Trump focusing on life, because friends, if we do not protect life, then we cannot protect and cherish liberty. Both of those ideals are God-given. There is just so much to discuss. I can't even do it all in one day, but I am going to have a great time sharing with you my perspectives on what is happening around us. So stay tuned and stay alert, because while Trump is fighting the DC elites inside the Beltway, the Convention of States Project is working outside the Beltway throughout the nation to make those changes that we all want permanent, by calling a convention of states and using Article 5 of the Constitution to propose amendments to put the foundational underpinnings back in place, to shore them up, to restore this Constitution that we love and revere, and to restore that rule of law. We have active legislation working in 16 states right now, and 15 more on the horizon. State legislators en masse are understanding finally that we do have the power to make those permanent fixes that will last generations, not merely for a presidential term. And that is the America that is going to be great again, with a firm grasp and a reinstated commitment to the Constitution and the American people, for being the champions, the arbiters, and that final check and balance for liberty. Join me at conventionofstates.com if you want to be part of this massive, growing grassroots army. Tweet me this week and let me know what you love best about what President Trump is doing at Tamara Colbert, hashtag Mama Grizz Radio. Have a blessed week. Keep watching, have fun, and know that we are together going to make America great again. President Trump's going to do it inside the Beltway, and you and I get a chance to do it with Convention of States Project all over this country. I'm Tamara Colbert for Mama Grizzly Radio.
Tamara Colbert in Texas. Tune in for more Liberty and Legacy next week. And to learn about Convention of States, head to conventionofstates.com. The Palin Update, including Liberty and Legacy, the Millennial Forecast, On Target, and the Crow's Nest is on demand and available for download. So just head to mamagrizzlyradio.com, pick the show you want to hear, and you can listen anywhere, anytime. Well, that'll just about do it for this edition of the Palin Update on Mama Grizzly Radio. Visit mamagrizzlyradio.com for continuing coverage of Governor Palin. Also, like Mama Grizzly Radio on Facebook. And follow along on Twitter at Mama Grizz Radio, at Kevin Scholla, at Tamara Colbert, at Tanya Yoga 13, at S Hagmeyer 2, and at FBR ABQ. And I'm doing some writing for Breitbart News. Go to Breitbart.com and search Kevin Scholla. I want to thank Tamara Colbert, Tanya Crow, Kelly Carlson, Sarah Hagmeyer, and everyone here at Mama Grizzly Radio. Thanks to Abby Johnson, and thank you for listening today. A special thanks to our sponsor, Full Battle Rattle. Visit Facebook.com/Full Battle Rattle ABQ. The Palin Update is produced by Lena Anderson, the Andy L. Kramer, and Lorianne Lewis. Please be sure to join us again next time for another edition of the Palin Update right here on Mama Grizzly Radio. I'm Kevin Scholla. Have a pleasant day, and happy Groundhog Day.